because of what they don't, a lot of kids they have TVs in their house, and so like that influence another view of culture into their life. Poverty kids they don't have that, so they don't really have the view of the outside world that a lot of other kids do. So the culture is very different. It affects their culture, their poverty status. And so what we try to talk about is just like the differences between people and how like the differences are always bad. For some reason, lots of people like see difference and they get scared. And so we're just trying to talk to students the differences between each one of them and how each one of those can be a strength and how they can work really well. Like we try to get in the small group work where each one has a strength and different weaknesses, and they try to work together as a team to come in together and produce one um, final product together. So.
And as he was saying about the culture, sometimes we notice if the students are really interested in one particular area, like a while ago they were really interested in India when that was in the news for a while. So we actually developed lessons then to be taught in class as well that went along with the advisory group. So we had a whole unit then like on India in our classroom.
Another thing with advisory is the idea of a mentorship. A lot of students, especially poor students, don't have family to talk to. Their parents come home late. They see them for 15 minutes. If they've had a bad day, they have to keep all that inside, and they don't have someone to talk to. At Valley, we have this advisory program where they come in at the beginning of the day, and they have someone to talk to who cares, and they know if they need something, they can talk to them.
And this helps with their schoolwork too, we found out, because then they're not holding something in all day that happened yesterday. They have someone to talk to it about. They talk about what happened the night before, what happened yesterday at lunch, and instead of them not being able to focus on their studies all day because they're thinking of what happened yesterday at lunch, they're able to talk about that in the morning and get it out. That way all day when they're in class they can concentrate on what the teacher's saying and what they're learning.
So through this advisory program, how do the students get involved in the community?
I know one example that we did was we went and cleaned up a park, one of the community parks. We went out and got rid of the spray paint and all the garbage that was on it, and it helped them take like ownership of the community and feel involved in their community and important.
Yeah, and another great thing about that is that after doing that project, we got to come back to the classroom, got to come back to the advisory, and the students were able to talk about their experiences, what they liked, what they didn't like, and what we found is a lot of students really they begin to feel ownership of the park, they begin to feel ownership of the community. They were very much a part of the community. They started to feel attached, and they were starting to build those attachments that a lot of poverty students unfortunately can never really make. And it was just really cool to see that within these students that they're really starting to take ownership for their environment and the people around them, and seeing that they can make a difference in this world. That they're not powerless. They're not spiraling. Their life is not spiraling out of control, but they can actually do something about it.
Another thing, it definitely gave community members, they saw the students in a different light then. They didn't just see them as poverty kids, they saw them as somebody helping out the community, and it just kind of shed a different light on our students.
And it really gives them leadership. That whole skill of leadership that a lot of poverty kids they don't get. They don't get the chance to succeed in school. They're not school leaders. They don't have the chance to go out and do a lot of the fun stuff their friends do. So they get this leadership that we start, and hopefully we keep building upon that. And adolescence is the perfect time to implement that in our students. So with the activities you do in advisory, do these kids that are in poverty get bullied at all, or is it really that type of a community that they feel open enough to be themselves?
I think before we started a few years ago, before we started the whole advisory program and really implement that into our schools, there was a lot of problems with advisory because what was happening is students that are not impoverished, they really weren't they adolescents they very much are egocentric. They look at themselves and they look at how they view other people by the way they're dressed. Impoverished students are not dressed in the hip, cool fashions that a lot of other kids are, and so they're picking on these kids for that, not really understanding why they look that way and why they're dressed that way, why they're not coming in with the coolest new gadgets and clothes and stuff like that. But once we implemented an advisory program, what I've seen and what we've seen is that students are starting to understand the differences, and they're starting to understand that not everyone has the same opportunities that they might have, and so like it really did cut down on the picking on certain students.
Another thing I would say is just how you implement your advisory in your own classroom. I know when I started off I was kind of concerned that they would be bullied for their thoughts or views. So there's a lot of different activities you can do. You can do where every student like turns in their idea into a hat and they don't put a name on it, and then you pull it out and then everyone talks about it. That way not one student is, oh, you know, they look at me funny, I don't have clothes, the right clothes, not everyone in the class knows that just one person feels that way, they don't know who said that. So that kind of takes out some of the worriment that you're going to be picked on for whatever you say in advisement.
But also what you see sometimes, as I've noticed, is that students think they're the only ones that feel that way. They're the only ones who are feeling, oh, everyone's looking at me. Advisory, they're, oh, those people, they feel the same as I do. I'm not
Yeah.
alone. I'm not alone in feeling lonely or sad or out of the loop or I'm not in the right cliques. They get to experience that in advisory.
Well, I just wanted to thank you all for coming, and you really informed us a lot about students that are in poverty.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.